you know what? I'll just say this. The grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned.
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope that you're having a really good day so far. If you are new here, my name is Taylor. This is Star Baby Moonchild, and we come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland. Here on my YouTube channel, I feature content that is generally focused on knitting and spinning. And in today's episode of what I call the Thread to Mend podcast, I'm going to sit down and share with you the things that I'm currently working on. I have spinning goals completed for the week, and I have swatched for 2 new projects. So I'm going to review the pattern, materials, and swatching experience with you all. And I thought we would review a few new favorite patterns on Ravelry, things that I'm thinking about adding to my queue, others that I know I might not ever make time to knit, but I very much appreciate. And I think that I might start off with my spinning, because that is the most exciting in my mind. If you don't know, I've set a goal for myself to spin a skein of yarn every single week until Maryland Sheep and Wool. I took off last week to prepare myself as I had completed an entire half a fleece I brought home from New York back in October, and I thought I would just give myself a little time for a palette cleanser as I transition to a new project. So that yarn I have put somewhere, I think it's over there, and I spun that into about a worsted weight yarn. So I thought I would switch it up this week with something lighter. I believe this turned out to be about a DK weight yarn. It is super bouncy. There's a lot of air in this worsted spun yarn, and it is a 2-ply. And the fiber content is a cormo cross. I believe it is a cormo merino cross, although I cannot recall. The staple length was very generous, and I did show off the fiber that I spun into this yarn last week in last week's video, so if you haven't checked it out, it is on my channel. And I like the dimension of color. I'm definitely going to have to alternate skeins for this one, because when you do look at this in bright natural sunlight, you do see like a tonal shift throughout. Sometimes it's very warm and like a rich chocolate, like caramel sort of brown, and other times it's a bit more deep and kind of like a deep dark sort of chocolate brown. And in other areas it's kind of barber poled a little bit. It is very, very lovely. It's still a little bit damp, and I spun this yarn on my Kromsky Minstrel spinning wheel. It's my only spinning wheel. And in fact, I was looking up what it would cost to buy one today, and I got lucky 7 years ago when I purchased my wheel new. I paid just under $600 for that wheel back then, and it is a bit more expensive than that now. So, God bless you if you're buying a wheel in today's economy. I would do it again if I needed to. I'm obsessed with my wheel. It's the only wheel I ever want. I hope to own it for eternity. This skein measures about 110 grams. I forget my count. I think it was 340 something yards. I haven't done a very specific measure. I counted the loops and multiplied by 2. I forget exactly. I'll recount and do a proper measure of the yardage. It has a lot of bounce to it. It holds a lot of air inside of this worsted prep and semi-worsted spun yarn. I have a habit of kind of I don't do a long draw, but I kind of have this long draw habit to my backward. I don't know. I just do the thing. I don't study the thing. I don't know the right language. I do learn a lot though from other spinners on the internet that talk about their spinning. They know the right thing to say, and I just practice. And for me, practice is what makes the perfect yarn, because I feel like every single skein is getting me closer and closer to the most balanced, the most even, the most consistent. And I would say this skein of yarn has been one of my most consistent spins yet. It's very soft, it's very squishy. I have almost no areas where it is over twisted in the plies, so I've gotten really good at not over twisting my singles. I do plan to spin the last of this fleece in the same manner so that I have about a sweater quantity, more or less. I'm trying to knit everything that I spin right away so that I can really realize, like, okay, it is important to stop and thin out areas that catch a little extra thickness. Which I'm not sure a lot of people know, that when you're spinning, like, everyone meets a little bump in the road, and people who are better at spinning, really, they just have learned how to stop and correct their errors before moving on. Like, that's something I learned about my spinning, is that I'm never going to stop accidentally picking up too much fiber. It's just a matter of learning, when did I just do that? How do I go back? How do I fix it? It's just like knitting. You drop stitches, you twist stitches, you purl instead of knit, or knit instead of purl. When you become a better knitter, you just learn how to fix those mistakes. It's not like you never make them again in the future. So I hope that is re-encouraging. I hope that message is encouraging to you all out there if you're learning to spin. I actually did record quite a bit of footage of myself spinning at my wheel a couple nights ago, and I thought I would do a little audio dub over that to talk more about spinning, so that might be in a future video soon. Let me know in a comment below if you would love to hear more of my thoughts about spinning wool. You might be curious to know what I'm wearing. It is the Manau pattern by Isabel Kramer. I love this sweater. It fits so nice. It has lots of neck and shoulder shaping before the yoke design, and I feel like the depth of the yoke is quite nice. It fits very comfortably at the neck and the front sort of chest. I never feel like I have to adjust the way that this sweater lays over my upper body, and I think I modified it slightly just to keep a more I don't remember. I remember though that I did decrease. I didn't decrease at all, and then suddenly I decreased at the forearm just before doing the short rib. This fabric has pilled quite a bit. It is my hand spun of a different lighter brown chocolate fleece, and this contrast is my other dark fleece I featured in last week's video, the very short staple fiber. So total hand spun sweater. I love it so much. And I did alternate skeins so that there would be less pooling of the shifting in color, except throughout the yoke. Throughout the yoke, I used just those two colors. And then once I got to the main portion for the body, where it was just flat, that's where I alternated skeins to keep the color a bit more managed. And that's what I'm wearing. I'm very excited to talk about this week 2 new patterns I've been swatching for. The first pattern that I swatched for is using my hand spun yarn. This is the light gray merino fin cross fiber that I had spun up the last several weeks into a 2-ply yarn. And I am, I think, about 1 stitch over in terms of gauge. I'm meeting the row gauge, but I think it's either half a stitch or a full stitch extra, which means that ultimately, if I knit the pattern according to its instructions, it's going to be a tiny bit smaller than it should measure up in the actual gauge. So with that in mind, because I'm between sizes most often anyway, I'm going to look to the finished bust circumference. So the extra small is 32 inches, the small is 35.75 inches, and the intended ease is 2 to 3 inches. My bust is 32, 2 to 3 inches of positive ease would be 34 to 35 inches. And I have the choice between a 32-inch garment and a 35.75-inch garment. With that in mind, I'm going to move forward with the recommended needle, and it is a US size 4. I am optimistic that this is going to fit me quite well, and I will keep you updated on the progress of my Seleste tee. Moving on, I also have a swatch here for the Vellichor t-shirt pattern, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. You might be wondering, Taylor, we thought you were going to knit that with your handspun, and I began my attempt at swatching the pattern with my handspun, and the moment I got 2, 4, 6, 8 rows in, I knew this is not going to work for me. It's a lovely stitch pattern with a lot of texture and a lot of density. I don't think that I'm giving too much away by speaking on this subject for a brief moment, because if you know how to read your knitting and you can look at the picture of this pattern, you could probably decipher that there is garter stitch happening here and raised slipped stitches. And those slip stitches are cabled. So you have cables, which add density, you have slip stitches, which add density, and you have garter stitch, which adds density. And to pair those 3 elements of a pattern with a very dense yarn makes for a very thick and squishy fabric. So I decided to go with a yarn substitution that might be more similar to the yarn that she chose to knit this pattern. And that is, I don't know, let's see, what did she use? She used Yoth, Mother and Best Friend. I think that those are light fingering, 550 yards per 100 grams. So I have decided to pair this pattern with lighter yarns that I've had in my stash for a while. The main color from my stash for this swatch is knit with the Stephen and Penelope's bicycle yarn. It is the color Tiger, and I just love the lightness of this 2-ply worsted spun fingering yarn. And the second color, the contrast color striped throughout, is a skein of mohair silk that was naturally dyed by Ocean by the Sea. I very much love this shade of yarn, and I like these 2 colors paired together. And then I had, for contrast, in my stash a remnant skein or 2 of a couple different colors, and I experimented with how I was going to incorporate them into this pattern. First here I did a skein. The first one here I did a row of a single strand of the contrast color 1, that mauve, with a single strand held together of this sort of coppery orange color. And I did like that, but I felt like it was a little too warm. I wasn't sure about it, so I thought I would live a little dangerously and do the same thing. One strand of the mauve mohair with 1 strand of the neon yellow. And that one didn't really stand out to me all that much. These mohair silk contrast yarns, by the way, are from Pearl Soho. It's their tussock yarn. I wasn't sure if it was high contrast enough or if I really liked it, so I thought I would go in with 2 strands of the neon yellow held together. I do like the monochromatic look of the neon yellow with the rich and deep, like ochre earwax yellow. I knew I didn't want to settle with the copper color contrast on its own, but then when I incorporated the neon yellow, I kind of liked that. I liked how subtle those stripes were. But then when I added that real pop of neon, I thought that was quite striking. And so I definitely want to go with the neon held double. But seeing those 3 stripe options together, I like that too. So I haven't decided yet whether I'm just going to keep it with the neon yellow alone and just alternate that color with the main and the contrast one, or if I'll keep the copper pop in there. In retrospect, I wish I did a stripe with the copper held double, but I have such little yardage of that yarn, I'm really not sure that I want to incorporate it because I could very easily run out before the project is over. I do have quite a bit though of the neon yellow, so I'm confident that I have enough yardage for that. But this is my swatch. I'm so happy with it so far, and the fabric is gorgeous. I think I'm gonna get a lot of wear out of this in spring and summer even, because it's a very loose and open garment. I think it'll be really comfortable to wear in almost all seasons. So I'm excited to knit this project. And I was perusing the size options as one does before they start a pattern, and I noticed that the extra small is 38 point, I say extra small, I mean to say the smallest size 1, I should say, is 38.5 inches, and the size small is 44 inches. Now that is a difference of 5.5 inches, and the recommended ease is 8 to 12 inches. And next I want to go through some of my favorites saved on Ravelry. I have favorited quite a few patterns in recent days. One of the first I want to share with you I'm most excited about, because I think I have added this to my queue already. In fact, I need to purchase this pattern before the 21st at midnight because it's 15% off. So I'm going to just add this to my cart right now and check out this pattern because I want to save 90 cents. It's a shape that I know that I like. I love a triangular shaped shawl. It is a fingering weight shawl with a lot of texture, which I usually hesitate to commit to because it does take quite a bit of time to knit shawls with such intricate detail to them, but boy, do they really pay off in the end. If I haven't built up enough anticipation, the pattern I'm referring to is called Smilga by Inese Sang. I'm not sure that I said her name properly, but that is the pattern name and the designer. And boy, I love this design. I love the cables, I love the traveling cables, I love the diamonds with the little motifs inside. I think the baubles are really cute. I love that they have a contrast color to them. And I really like the way that the baubles look in the sample. I noticed that in some of the project pages for testers that their baubles were really pronounced and kind of looked a bit swollen. So in the back of my mind, when I'm seeking out yarn for this pattern, I'm going to find a yarn that's a little bit lighter in weight than possibly the main color, or something that is a similar substitute to whatever she's using. It looks like this is knit with the Mayak Baby Yak lace held together, so 2 lace weights held together. And so I'm going to experiment with my baubles before I commit to a bauble, and either hold it single so that they're just a little bit smaller and they don't really kind of like overtake the bottom of that shawl. So love, love, love. And so many of these sample knits are quite gorgeous. I love when you can see, even when a pattern is brand new, I love when you can see that a lot of people knit it in different colors. So you can kind of live vicariously through other knitters and before you make your own commitment to the design. The fingering weight yardage is 925 yards. I couldn't control myself and I stopped everything I was doing to dig through my yarn drawers and decide which yarns from my stash I'm going to knit this project with. And I chose the Juniper Moon Farm Patagonia Organic Merino 2-ply worsted spun fingering weight yarn. This is 100 grams with 382 yards. I have 3 skeins of this, so plenty to accomplish this pattern. And then what is a lot more questionable are the remnant skeins I picked out from my remnant drawer. It says that if you're using fingering weight yarn with the 3-color option, you would need just 55 yards and 66 yards of each of the 2 contrast colors. And I don't know for sure, but maybe I have enough between these 3 colors that I could alternate. It looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of baubles. So maybe I could do like 1, 2, 3 and then 2, 3, 1 and then maybe alternate it. Oh my god, that'd be fun.
Oh my gosh! And here are wiggles.
I don't know if you have one of these, but I love it. It gives you right down to the 10th of a gram, so it's very accurate. A lot of the kitchen scales are, my last kitchen scale was very, very inaccurate. So I have 21 grams, 16 grams, and 15.5 grams. If originally 100 grams had, well, let's just use whatever this is, 382 yards divided by 100 grams times 21.5, that would be 82 yards roughly. So in theory, I have enough of this yarn to be one of my contrast colors. I love how muted and monochromatic it feels. I'm actually really excited to cast this on, even though I'm doing a lot right now. I have still the second sleeve to knit on that design I've been working. I want to finish the Slipstravaganza next. I have the bubble cardigan still on my needles. I did pull that out and worked about half a row one night when I decided to shift it into a basket out of a project bag. And then I have these 2 new t-shirts to talk about. So there's a lot happening here, but it's all from my stash so far. So, well, I say all as if I didn't cast on some of these projects like forever ago, but I'm excited to pair these together. I'm actually gonna pull these skeins out and put them into my basket where I store all the things that I'm intending to knit. And wow, super excited about that. If you made it this far into this week's video, let me know in a comment below with the ear emoji in reference to my favorite color, and we'll all know what that means. But there were a couple other patterns that I had favorited that I think are really cute. This one is called the Willow Tunic, and I don't know what drove me to save this in my library, but it looks like I saved a person's project page. But you know me, I am a sucker for traveling cables, and I just loved the way those cables came together at the bottom for the hem. I thought that was lovely. Lovely. It reminds me of the linked bra pattern, actually. So the Willow Tunic, I think that is pretty. It's by Jolene Treese. And I'm going to save the actual pattern in my favorites. It's from Jamieson's Shetland Knitting Book 2. Okay, now I'm going to check out all 18 patterns from this book. Wow, this is a really pretty colorwork moment. Oh, this is another lovely cable design. This reminds me a little bit of Nora Gong's Nightingale, the way that the cables go in and out. This is the Scalloway pullover. Let's see, Jamieson's Shetland Knitting Book 2. I might have to pick that up because I like these cable designs. Of course, the Willow Tunic. Those two are the winners for me. The Willow, oh, the Golden Lotus, this is called a kimono, even though we all know that that's not a kimono. It is giving me Marie Wallin Yell vibes for sure. Although I'm sure she didn't invent the concept of a oversized open cardigan. But anyway, I'm really impressed with Jamieson's Shetland Knitting Book 2. I'm gonna have to add that to my library one day. But back to my favorites, I saved all of these vintage Fair Isle jumpers here, here, here to my favorites, but they're not like patterns. Like you can't get the pattern on Ravelry. It's just a record of the fact that this pattern was published in some, you know, pamphlet in time. So yeah, I don't know if I'll ever even attempt to knit a Fair Isle with no ease type of shirt, but Tell me that's not gorgeous. Ugh, so cute. In fact, this is reminding me I have something exciting to share with you. I'm gonna run and grab it really quick. Sorry to change the subject so rapidly, but I just remembered that I had this. My Aunt Linda, who is my father's only sister, decided to send me a few things of my grandmother's, and she sent to me my grandmother's high school Letterman. Is it called a Letterman jacket? It is from 1945, and it's in near mint condition. I did notice on the inside of this button band there is a little bit of breakage on the yarn here, so I'm trying to be very delicate with this. I hesitate to even put it on, but she did go to Johnson City High School. I think it was in Binghamton, New York, where I was raised, and a lot of my family lived throughout history in that part of New York. But it is very acrylic. This is one of the most densely knit yarns I've ever felt. And the tag, it says Binghamton Knitting Company. So this was actually manufactured in Binghamton, New York, which I think is really awesome because I was too. And I'm really happy to have this. I don't know what to do with it. I'm trying to keep all the cat hair off of this, which is rather difficult for me. If I'm not shedding, my cats are shedding, and this house, I try to keep up with it, but it's impossible. So there's that. Oh, this one is so cool. It is a very geographic pattern by Olga Jazzy. It's the Cormo, and I love this. It is a combination of like reverse stockinette striping meets slip stitches that kind of alternate. While I was reviewing the project pages for this pattern, I noticed how different this shawl will look depending on the yarn that you choose and the color that you choose and which color you choose to put where. This project page uses two colors like the pattern is written, but they're alternating where they use which ones, which gives a really shining example of how different it could look depending on where you put the dark color versus the light color. So I don't know if I will ever knit this at all one day, but I think it's really interesting. And while I'm at a festival and I'm finding like amazing yarns, I like to keep projects like this sort of in the back of my mind when I'm shopping for yardage. So I'm gonna keep it in my favorites. I'm not gonna add it to my queue just yet, but this does call for a DK weight yarn. So it must be a very like squishy, snuggly shawl. And the yardage it just says 3 skeins, approximately 575 yards. And yeah, for both colors. I'm gonna leave you with one last pattern in my favorites. I actually have this in my queue right now. It's the Colette Tee by Witra Design. Not sure if I said that correctly, so it is there on the screen for you to read. And I just love this mock neck t-shirt. It uses a DK weight yarn. I think that it's knit in the pattern with a non-wool base because of the sort of like rowing out that I see. That's really common with like a plant-based fiber. It just is difficult to maintain a proper like evenness to the rows, especially if you're knitting and purling. It looks like this is in the round with a raglan sleeve, short row shaping, worked from the top down, which are all of my favorite things. But what really struck me is this sleeve design. So I love the way that the raglan kind of starts closer to the shoulder rather than at the neck. I just thought that detail was lovely, and I would really like to see something like that in my wardrobe. Let's see the sizing here. It goes up to 3XL. It gives you circumference, I'm guessing in centimeters because those numbers are not familiar to me. So I'm not sure what the sizing is in inches. but I can always sit down and do that math on my own. I'm not sure how inclusive it is. 125 centimeters. Anyway, the yardage is 200 grams up to 450 grams at the largest size. And I think that if I spin the rest of this fleece, I would certainly have enough to knit something like a t-shirt. I'm not sure what the yardage requirements are. 492 to 984. I personally like it when patterns have how many yards you need for each size within the description of the pattern. Not every person does that. Sometimes they only give you the amount of yarn in grams, but not in yards. So it makes it difficult to shop for. And I think that is it for this week's episode of the Threadspin podcast. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry and Instagram. You can find me over on TikTok as Taylor Knits. I want to thank all of you so much for being here. Thank you so much for participating in the live chat of this video premiere. If you don't know, I premiere all of my weekly podcast videos on Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, I want to thank all of you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and that you all take care.